Good morning and welcome to Love Every Moment, coming to you today from the Black Hills of South Dakota. Today's verse is Matthew 7:15. Beware of the false prophets who come to you in sheep's clothing, but inwardly are ravenous wolves. Well, 2 weeks ago we hit verse 13, and I have the link up here, and there was a warning about entering through the narrow gate because the gate is wide that leads to destruction, and there's many people that are going to go that way. And now in today's verse we're getting one of the reasons for that. It's false prophets. Now the devil has been caricatured in American culture as to have, a red suit and horns and a pointy tail and a pitchfork and such, and he just looks evil. But the truth is, the devil doesn't look evil at all. He looks good. He looks like a sheep. And he might be in amongst the other sheep. So he's going to pass himself off as a Christian. And that's where we have to be very careful. And here's the little advanced hint. How do we know that there's a false prophet? How do we know that we have a wolf in sheep's clothing? We're going to be finding out that we'll know them by their fruits, not necessarily by their doctrine, because that can be tricky, not necessarily by their spirituality, because that can be faked, and not even because of their Christian acts. It's because of their fruits. That's how we can tell, and we'll hit that more next week. But let's look at cross-reference here and see what we might learn from it. In 2 Peter 2:1, it says, "But false prophets also arose among the people, just as there will also be false teachers among you, who will secretly introduce destructive heresies, even denying the master who bought them, bringing swift destruction upon themselves." And verse 2 is really key in what I'm going to say here. "Many will follow their sensuality, and because of them, the way of the truth will be maligned." It's going to be people who are following their own flesh, following human desires and not God's desires, not what Scripture says to do. And that's one way we're going to see that, is if we see someone who's feeding their flesh and feeding their human desires, there's a really good sign that they are a false prophet. If they're amassing a lot of wealth for themselves, cars and boats and airplanes and things like that, then they are satisfying their own flesh. I remember seeing an interview with those who followed David Koresh, and they still insisted that his words were right, even though he was taking everybody else's wives and sleeping with young teens who aren't even married, and he was feeding his flesh and they couldn't see that. Let's look at one more, and that is, if I can get the computer to work here, Matthew 24:24. "For false Christs and false prophets will arise and will show great signs and wonders, so as to mislead, if possible, even the elect." And this is another movement. The prosperity movement is often attached to following miracles and signs and wonders. And I know Christians in my life who say, "I'm a good Christian because I do miracle signs and wonders, and God has selected me for special miracles," and so on. And this is going to hurt some feelings, but miracles can be from the devil. They can be faked, all right? And things that we know as spiritual gifts, such as prophecy, that can be faked. That's why they're called false prophets. So don't follow those who are feeding the flesh. Follow those who have the fruit of the Spirit. And the first fruit of the Spirit is love. Because if we love every moment, we're going to love every moment. I'm your average wretch, and I hope you have a great week.